to achieve through the course as much as we can. So we'll be giving you the fundamentals, the basic principles that set the stage for cognitive science as a very legitimate, important, and applicable scientific study of the mind, of ourselves, as Dr. Yashpal was mentioning, and also have some kind of linkages with how and why this is useful by talking about different applications, different social issues, different larger constraints, and the sensitivities of how society is. It's not like a self-help. So we are not really going to talk about how you will be able to do something that some books talk about, but here we'll be trying to give you a more scientific basis about how the mind and generally works, and show why knowing that is so important for all of us. So we should be able to connect with each of us with that kind of um, interest, and that is what should make the course important for you to attend, um, and not anything else. So what I will do is I'll first run through the contents of the course. Sorry, this is still have to get out. Yeah. So this is. So Dr. Yashpal, do you want me to talk about the content?
Yes. Yes. Let us first, I think, talk about the basic expectations in this course. First thing is about the attendance. Yes, attendance is compulsory, and we would expect at least 75% attendance from each of you, as it is the norm. But of course, this is an online mode and these are COVID times, so we are definitely cognizant of that. We'll try to understand as much as possible, but we'll expect some initiative from you, and expect you to be there for all tutorials and classes. And keep in mind that tutorials are also evaluated. In fact, one of the evaluating components will be taken care of in the tutorials. So it is your responsibility to be present in the tutorials and in the classes. Okay, so first, let us first get to know the TAs. May I request all the TAs to please turn on their cameras and introduce yourself one by one, please. Maria, are you there?
Yes, I'll go first.
Yes, please turn on your camera. Please introduce yourself to the class.
Right. Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, sirs. I'm Maria, and I'm a PhD scholar in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. I'm in my second year of PhD. And yeah, I'm working with Dr. Jogdal. And I'm looking forward to a good semester with you all. And my email address is on the page where you have your course content, the course outline. So if you have any issues, you can feel free to reach out to me with your problems, and I'll try to help you out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Iram, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please go on.
Good evening, everyone. So, myself, Iram Fatima. I'm also doing PhD, and it's my second semester, second year here. I'm working with Dr. Yashpal Jogdan again. And yeah, if you have any query or doubt or anything, feel free to reach us and contact us on the given email IDs. We'll help you out with everything. I'm looking really forward to have a very great learning experience with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Iram. Uruz? Uruz, are you there?
Yes. Hello,
Yes.
everyone. I'm Uruz Khan. I work with Dr. Sumitav Mukherjee. And as you can see, our email addresses are written there. You guys can contact us. We'll be there in your tutorial sessions. So any questions which you have, you can ask us, and then we will forward it to sir if we are not able to answer it. So feel free to contact us any point of time, during or after the class. So thank you.
Thank you, Uruz. Pallavi?
Yes, sir. Um, Hi everyone, I'm Pallavi. I'm a fourth year PhD student and I'm excited to see where this course takes us all. Please feel free to, like everyone has said, please feel free to contact any one of us. We'll be happy to help you out and we're there for you all. So please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you, Pallavi. Preeti? Preeti, are you there?
Audible?
No,
Hello.
I can't see you yet.
So, but my
Yes, please.
camera and my mic is.
No problem.
Hello.
Yeah. Now we can see you. Please go on.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Hello to all. I am Preeti, and I have started my fifth semester, and I'm working with Dr. Yashpal Ashokrav Jogdan. And as everyone has said that if you have any doubt or any queries regarding the course, you can write to us, and I hope you will get to learn a lot from this course.
Thank you, Preeti. Sumaya?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Sumaya. I'm working with Dr. Yashpal and I'm one of your TA. I'm also happy to help you guys in this course.
Thank you, Sumaya. Avantika?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
So hi everyone, I'm Avantika. I'm also a PhD student in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. I am working under Professor Dr. Sumitava Mukherjee. And this should be a very interesting course for all of you. And like everybody else has mentioned, if you need anything, just contact any of us TAs and we will make sure to help you out. Thanks.
Thank you, Avantika. Shivanand?
Yes, so yeah, good evening, all of you. Happy to see like a large group of class. First time seeing that there are more than 300 people attending on Teams. I'm one of the TA, and you can see my email address on the screen. And I'm the last person to repeat this statement that feel free to contact us in whenever you need in week during classes or after classes, and we'll meet in the tutorial sessions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shivanand. So with these introductions, one of the important points I want you all to remember is that during the email conversation, please copy all TAs in the communication with us so that they are informed of what is going on. Okay, please include everybody. And this is very important that everybody is copied on the email when you communicate. Then moving on, so important point is about the academic honesty. You see, uh, since I think this is also important because we are doing the course in an online mode, but please remember the honor oath, the kind of a pledge that you have signed while taking admission at IIT Delhi. We are all bound by that honor code. We have to maintain highest ethical standards in our conduct. So that is very important that you basically stay away from any sort of a teaching and malpractice. And if there are any doubts, you require any help, just get in touch with any one of us. But we have absolutely zero policy, zero tolerance policy for any of the cheating or malpractices. Just keep that in mind. Yes, we'll be recording the lectures and lectures will be available on Moodle as well as on Impartus. Uh, yeah, and tutorials, as I have mentioned, will be conducted on weekly basis. You will all be put in different batches and tutorials will be conducted, but keep in mind that tutorials are compulsory, will be evaluated. Whatever taught in the tutorials will be evaluated. And one of the important evaluation of the course is, as I will explain, is through a group project which will be taken care of during the tutorial. So you must be present for the tutorials. For the sake of our A's and make the matters more straightforward, we have put together a PDF version of the textbook on the NOBA website, there is under the heading reading material, you will find a link which gives you the whole book. But at the same time, you will see that there are these links, the blue links available in the course plan. You just click on that link and it will take you to that specific reading material. So reading material is there available. You can download it in one go or look at it as you wish. Keep in mind that in terms of the audit and pass criteria, out of 100 pass criteria for the course, that is one needs to score at least 30% of the marks, and audit pass criteria for the course is D. And you can email us if you need more clarity and clarification regarding that. But the most important aspect is evaluation. It is usually on the minds of students. So keep in mind that you will have 2 exams of 20 marks. Yes, you all now are familiar with the online exams. It will be in the same way. And if there are any variations, we'll communicate them. Then there, I hope you already have some familiarity with the practice of memo writing, but the memos basically will be the short opinion or short, in a way, responses about what is taught in the class, about any concept or or any open-ended question that you will need to write on the Moodle itself and submit within the given time. So just keep yourself informed about the memos, which constitute 20 marks. Okay, then there is a we have plans for doing a group project, and group project you can be creative, but maybe one of the examples would be to maybe a team can think of creating, and these will be smaller teams, not very big teams, but smaller teams can think of creating a YouTube video on a particular scientific psychological concepts, or maybe think of creating any important say poster or any other material, or maybe think of writing a Wikipedia entry or something like that, which will be systematically evaluated. I'll create a clear evaluation rubric for the group project, and it will be communicated to you in due course. And finally, one of the key arguments, as Dr. Sumitawa will also elaborate later, one of the key points that we want to make through this course is that psychology is a robust science. And one way to understand the way science of psychology works is to participate in and contribute to the psychological research. So this is a part where you all are required to participate in an ongoing research in psychology and secure those marks. You will need to write a reflective note on your participation and try and understand the scientific basis of psychology. Okay, so more elaboration on the exam and other things will be given later. So in terms of the final grading, this is also a question that is commonly asked. Grading, of course, will be relative to the performance of the code, but will not force-fit any distribution. And in terms of the reminers, with this sort of a class size, please keep in mind that we will allow reminers only in exceptional circumstances and with prior permission. You have to inform us beforehand, at least 25 hours before the exam, and you have to give a valid medical certificate if you are missing the exam for medical reasons. If there is any other reasons, you have to communicate and give us some sort of a supporting document or some sort of a supporting evidence for that. Just keep that in mind. Okay, with this, may I now invite Dr. Sumita to please introduce the initial weeks of the course.
Right. So as you see, and we will share this document with you, so you don't have to take any notes. You can access this document. We will put up a link on Moodle, so you should be able to see the course contents anytime. if you want to, think what you want to expect, or just go back and see what did we cover. It helps everybody. So this is where you would have this week, and this is the name of the class, and this is the number of hours, these 3 columns. You see the first week is more of an introduction to psychology as a science, as Dr. Yashpal was saying. So we introduce this philosophy of psychology being a science today through the course. But then the next session, this S signifies me and Y signifies Dr. Yashpal Yogdan. So in the next session of this week, I'll be talking about how do you think like a scientist. And I mean, you might have seen many books in computer science, especially I read one at least, thinking like a computer scientist, using Python, using C++ or whatever. But thinking like a computer scientist is a specific way of thinking. Of course, you can also study that, because that's also thinking, and it might be fascinating to do it. But when you do any activity, you have to put some kind of a hat on you. It's not easy to do anything with the same hat on. So here we want you all to put up a hat of a scientist. But what is it really to think like a scientist when you're studying the mind? And that I will touch upon, and in fact also the course will touch upon both basic research and applied real world stuff, because we want you to also appreciate that some fundamental theories and fundamental concepts get created in very constrained environments in the labs, but there are also a lot of research that has happened outside the lab. There's a lot of back and forth happening between lab and the fields. And at the same time, you would really want to understand the mind in its variety and veracity of it. So you can't really study the mind only inside a small room. Neither can you study, all kinds of things in a very chaotic marketplace. So we have this, movement between different things, and all of that has different scientific methods associated to it. None of that is non-scientific. So there's a specific way of studying or understanding the mind as a scientist. This is what the first week will set forth, mainly because we also see there's a lot of commonsensical understanding of how you can do psychology. Many of that sadly is wrong. So we want to separate out what at least we think is the way to do scientific psychology compared to other ways of understanding humans, which are legitimate, but that's not technically scientific. After we are done with that, the second week is going to talk about the history of psychology. So from where these ideas have come in place. So we'll look at, this will be taken by Dr. Yashpal. We'll be essentially covering the major ideas that got developed over the last 100 years or so. Of course, the ideas got developed way early on. I mean, you can actually go back to classic Indian texts and look at people talking about the mind. There are, great ideas in there, but because of time and other constraints, we are not going to go that back in the past, but we'll be more talking about the modern time, modern in the sense of the last 100, 150 years, of the major ideas that is now historical and that made us move towards and reaching where we are currently now at this stage in 2000s. Then I'll be talking about research designs. So how do you really do research? How do you design research? What are the different ways you can do it? And some kind of terms that are important for you to remember all through the course, because they will be addressed and referenced at other weeks, later weeks. But this is the time when you have to get some kinds of jargons in your head. We also have these links which says read on your own. So these are links again which are freely available parts of reading. So you can click on this link and you can read it on your own at your available time, but we strongly recommend that you read it within that week so that you are abreast with what is happening in the class. Then we'll go to the different kinds of processes that constitute psychology mostly. Of course, because of time constraints, we would not be able to cover as much as we would ideally want to cover. But we have picked what we think are very important aspects of psychology. And from there, the first week talks about perception and attention. So perception, we'll talk about perceptual systems. So how do we sense light? How do we, how are you able to see the screen right now? How do you perceive the letters on the screen? How do you perceive a shape? How do you know that A is an A, for example, or attention is a word attention? So that's about how perception and attention works. Then I'll talk about perception of forms. So when you have a circle, how do you know that it's a circle? Or when you combine different things, how do you know it's an object? So for example, the old telephone was constituted of multiple shapes and multiple forms, all put together to say it's a telephone and not something else. So how do you perceive these kinds of forms in nature and in real life? Then I'll talk of attention. Attention is a very fundamental aspect of how you select certain subset of information to, to deal with your life. It can be visual, it can be auditory, generally. It can also be other things like tactile. And then I'll talk of social attention. This is attention that we will study using some experiments in the lab. Then social attention is how do you attend to people when you're making conversation in daily life. You're talking with 5 of your friends. How do you attend to one single friend? Or when you're having conversation with your 5 friends and there's a car booming past you and you want to attend to the brand of that car. So let's say it's BMW and you at that, strikes in your head. How does that happen? So attention in the lab and attention in the more social complex environment. That's what will constitute these parts. We also have mentioned the tutorial activity within this. So here in the tutorial, we'll be talking about eyewitness testimonials, which is a very, very important part because that changes people's lives. In fact, the court system in the United States underwent a sea change because of psychological results and psychological research on eyewitness testimonials or eyewitness testimony. So we will introduce you to what made the US change in the way the court operates based on psychological research. That shows how important this is to change hundreds and thousands of people's lives. It is also very important in our courts, in our judiciary system. Eyewitness is one sacrosanct aspect of evidence. But how sacrosanct is it? What does the psychological research talk about it? That's what the tutorial activity will do through examples and through actual demonstrations that I'm sure you all will like. Then in week 4, we'll be talking about memory. Memory is fundamental to everything that you can think about. Right? So we have to first encode the information that's being given to us right now. We are going to give you information. You have to encode it. Encode means you have to convert it from the form it is to certain other forms. Then you have to store it in your mind somewhere. We have understood a lot of how we store information over the last 50, 60 years of research. And then how do you retrieve it? Like, for example, in examination, how do you go back to your memory to retrieve the answer and then write it in your exam? Or if you're meeting a friend after a long time, how do you retrieve the face from your memory to figure out that's my friend? That's not something some other person. And the issues with it. There are issues where people cannot understand or remember faces, for example. It's a very, very debilitating issue for people. So we'll talk of memory there. And then from memory and based on memory, to some extent, we'll talk of learning. So in learning, there are some classical theories of learning that is part of any understanding of psychology. But along with that, I'll also cover factors that influence learning. And this will come handy because I'm sure a lot of you think about how you can learn more effectively. What are the factors that makes you learn and not learn? Unlearn, because sometimes we learn things which are wrong, we have to unlearn them. So those kinds of things we'll discuss in week 4. Then tutorial activity, we'll talk of inattentional blindness. This is another classic where it tells you that if you do not attend to something, how does that affect your memory formation and memory retrieval, or even learning? Inattention is not attention. So how does attention, which is what is covered in the previous course, now gets linked with memory? So another thing that we want to stress multiple times is don't think of psychology as different small compartments in different weeks. So when you're reading about perception and attention, it's not one compartment where you read it and you forget about it. Of course, that's true for almost all knowledge systems. I think that is also true for courses that you take in other disciplines, but at least we can talk of the course that we are offering. Clearly, week 3 module is not a separate and standalone independent thing from week 4 and any other weeks, because your mind is one. There is a lot of processing happening back and forth all through. So when you're talking of memory or when you're talking of learning, we cannot forget about attention or perception. They are somewhat intertwined and interrelated, which we'll show you in the tutorial activity on inattentional blindness. Then there's things about research participation, as Dr. Yashpal was mentioning. These marks we will update on this depending on when we actually run them. Then I will talk about how, given that you know that this is how I perceive the world, this is how I attend to the world, this is how I encode the world, and this is how I retrieve the world, and this is how I learn about the world. With these things or these building blocks in place, how do I go about judging something? So if I have to make a judgment about how good this course is turning out to be, how good IIT Delhi is compared to the other IITs, or how good is it for us to introduce AI in our judiciary system, these are judgments that we'll make, which are going to be based on many other cardiac processes that you have already been covered, and some more which we are probably not covering in the course. But this is what we do. We go about our life judging people, judging objects, judging technologies, judging government policies, and even judging governments, judging God sometimes. The judgment is a very strong part of our life every single day. And the other related part is decision making. So judgment is when you judge and stop. Decision is when you actually take an action. So when you decide to choose IIT Delhi compared to IIT X, that's a decision that you have made based on some judgments you had about different IITs. And these things are heavily related to how we have encoded memories, how we have encoded, understood about the knowledge system, or let's say a concept called IIT. IIT is a concept. In fact, the whole world is a network of concepts. So that's why memory is so integral to how we go about leading our lives, and how you have perceived that information and how much of that you have attended to also comes in handy when you're talking about human judgments and decisions. In week 6, so here the tutorial activity will talk about effective learning. Now that you know about memory and learning and stuff like that, how can you learn effectively for your own good? There are different learning strategies. There are different learning schedules. People have done these experiments on rats, for example, for many years to understand how rats learn. But we have graduated that to understanding how monkeys learn, and now we also know how humans learn. So here we'll be sharing some of the effective learning techniques for humans, for us. Will you please mute yourselves, everybody else? Let's mute somebody who is not. In week 6, once we have done all that, I'll be talking about some applications. The point is to show that whatever we are talking about in the class is actually useful in. So I'll pick up one or two applications, and my target here is to pick applications around digital nudges, where you actually design certain kinds of interventions to change people's behavior in a certain way. So if, for example, I want people to make better financial decisions for themselves, or if I want people to social distance, can I have a small cost-effective app or an SMS or maybe an email system that makes people change their behavior in a certain way that I want people to change their behavior towards, thinking that this is good for both them and the society. So, from there is where I will stop, and Yashpal is going to take over from week 7, where he will start moving from our whole, structure around individual thinking and individual cognitive processes or psychological processes towards stepping out in the more real world, rather the real world, and looking at other aspects of how we work and we think, not just individually, but along with others and along with groups and in society and in culture. Dr. Yashpal,
Thank you, Dr. Sumita. So we'll start with some of the broader aspects of our existence. See, when I ask you a question, so most of you will first tell me your name, who are you as an individual, but then maybe you talk about, okay, I'm Ishpal and I come from, say, Maharashtra. then so Maharashtra is a region or is a state that I belong to. So my belongingness is part of who I am. And in the same way, supposing many of you will go abroad and interact with uh, people of foreign origin or in different countries, you will interact with people. And when you are introducing yourself in a gathering, how would you go? Most often, you would introduce your personal identity, who you are as a person, your name, what you do. That's also part of who you are. But at the same time, you will emphasize that yeah, I'm from India. I'm an Indian. So, isn't it? So, what does India mean here? India means who. First of all, you go back, say, a few hundred years. India as an entity didn't exist. There was no boundaries uh, as such created. The nation states are recent developments in the world, and looking at uh, the age of the earth and the way we evolved. The nation state is one of the ways we thought of organizing the world. Maybe something like some strange developments will take place in future, and as we see in many science fiction movies, a different sort of an order will emerge. Who knows? But here, signifying the broader entities that we are part of, our nation, culture, the kind of food that we eat, the kind of language that we speak, is part of who we are, is something that make us up. So when you interact with people, even on campus, you will identify yourself as, okay, I live in this hostel, I live in that hostel. This is how this hostel has these sort of people, that hostel has that sort of people and that sort of food, and they have these sort of festivals and they have these sort of traditions. So we create these sort of universes for us, isn't it? It's not just us as individuals, but us as part of these larger entities that surround us. So a valid question to ask here would be, what about the way our psychology functions in terms of these larger entity? Does culture shape the way I think about myself and the way I relate to others? And you see, when you are, say, interacting with a Japanese, a different quality of interaction takes place compared to the way you are interacting with an American, because the cultural, and you will note the cultural difference in the way the people from belonging to Japan and people belonging to United States think about themselves, relate to others, make judgment and decisions, process information, and so on. So why these broader entities matter, and how do we understand them? So when you think about cognition, the way we make sense of the world, the way we process information, it's pertinent to ask, how do we process information as collective entities, as groups, as cultures? What sort of a favorable, unfavorable, say, opinions and judgment we develop about different things, and how they influence us? So for example, the attitude towards something like mask wearing. Now, this is a very critical aspect of our social life, but it wasn't that critical, say, 2 years back. It wasn't critical before the pandemic, but now it is a critical aspect of the way we look at people, the way we approach people, the way we expect from people. So things change, and in that sense, we develop different attitudes, different ways of evaluating. So everybody is wearing a mask, and a person goes without mask. That person is perceived differently. But imagine the situation, the flip situation, say 2 years back, everybody is uh, wandering freely without any mask, nothing like that, and a person comes with mask. So people have a very different perception towards that person, that why is he or she wearing the mask? Maybe he or she is ill. Maybe we need to stay away from that. But the situation has completely changed. Now, where you will in fact feel more safe with people if you venture to go outside, if people are wearing masks. If people are not wearing masks, you will feel more insecure. This is how the situation changed, and this is how the way we think and the way we relate and the way we operate in the world changes according to the changing context. And one of the ways psychology tries to make sense of ourselves is through mapping out the systematically and with utmost scientific clarity the way these changes affect ourselves and the way we also affect these changes and in fact create these changes in the environment. So we start with trying to understand social cognition, attitudes, and also address the issue, the context of culture and the way it shapes our emotions and the expression of our emotions. That when do people express anger? This is something that I was hinting at. When do people express anger? And the way anger is expressed is totally different in a culture like India, in a culture like, say, United States, and in a culture like Japan. Because all these behaviors and thinking are bound by the cultural context and norms and the way people have developed different ideas about how we approach and how we should appear to other people. That becomes more important. Then we focus on different aspects of our social cultural engagement in terms of the way we help. There is no person in the world who has not helped anyone or who has not received any help. And so helping or any sort of a positive pro-social behavior is part of who we are, and that's how we survive. We try to help each other and we expect help from others. But it is not so simple. You cannot take help for granted. You will need much more systematic investigation to understand what are the antecedent, what are the conditions that, or what are the elements that make people help more. So one can say so if you meet a person, you say, oh, that is a very helpful person. So what are you really talking about? You are talking about that person's personality, that he is a helpful person. So what is important? A person's personality, or maybe a kind of an exchange. That person has helped you because he hoped that maybe he'll get something in return. So who knows what was the motive behind helping? We need to, in a way, investigate much more closely. And people also say that there are certain cultures which are really in which people are more helpful. You go to this village, you go to that nation, people are really helpful and warm and cordial. But in other places, people are a bit hostile and a bit uptight and so on. So we make these observations, and most commonly we make these observations on the basis of our common sense and intuition. But we need science to say something very solid about that, to something that, okay, there is an accident in the road, who is going to intervene? Because anyone can be a victim of an accident, maybe one of us. How are we going to receive help if we don't know the scientific processes behind it? You cannot lift that aspect of human life just untapped, as if there is no scientific process exist behind it. In fact, if you look at the latest research on helping or pro-social behavior, there are systematic processes by which you can create more conducive environment for people, where people can come to help others, and people will in a way try to minimize the impact of things like accidents and so on, and it can make society more cordial and helpful and cohesive. That is possible, and that is possible only if we understand the science behind helping behavior. So helping is not just a commonsensical activity or just an everyday activity which has no root or stem and shoot, but it's much more grounded than that, and it is possible to go into that, systematically investigate and develop and understand and capture that scientific principles that govern our helping behavior and shape our behavior for the betterment of humanity. So it is possible. But coming to the other aspect, we also need to understand our own attachment to social groups. So whom we help. You suppose you are a bystander, you are going for some to run some errand, and you saw an accident happened in the road, and say everybody is looking, no one is rushing to help. You are looking at the person, and you are thinking, why is no one helping? Should I help? Should I not help? Maybe someone else will come and take care of this. Why should I be bothered? Or something like that. So all those thoughts are going on in your mind. You are waiting for others to help. Suddenly you see that the victim of that accident happens to be one of your friends. Everything changes. You will rush. You won't even think. What has changed? What has shaped your behavior then? Because you are able to find connection with the victim, you are most likely to help. And this, the way it has happened in your friendship, in your interpersonal networks. See, if the victim of an accident is a person, so imagine you are in, say, Japan, and same sort of an accident has happened, and you see the victim of that accident is an Indian. As soon as you discover that person is an Indian and you know you are an Indian, then you will instantly, there is a more scientific basis to say that you will rush to help that person, most probably because of your connection as being an Indian. And being an Indian is not just a label, but what it means something. What is the point of calling oneself Indian if you are not going to help another Indian? So Indianness also means creating those positive bonds between people. So this is how the psychological ideas shape our behavior and has larger implications for our life. And this is some positive aspect, but there are also negative aspects that we need to be aware of. Same sort of a psychological processes are also embedded in the processes of conformity. You do something, for example, how do people learn to smoke? Smoking is a bad habit, everybody knows that, but people didn't always know that. In fact, you go back a few decades and you see that smoking was a norm. Nobody took it that seriously. I remember watching a clip on BBC some time back, and it was interviews of people from 1920s where they were smoking, and they asked, what about the health effects of smoking? Said, who bothers? Who bothers? Who cares? Nothing happens. See, I have been smoking for the last 10 years. Nothing has happened to me. That was the argument. But you interview people today, even smokers, non-smokers, you see the effect that the scientific research has made. Everybody now knows that smoking is an utterly harmful activity, not just for the person who is doing smoking, but also for the people surrounding that person. Because of the scientific investigation, we now have very stringent laws to stop the smoking behavior. It's much more complicated than that. People get trapped and people still continue. That's another domain. That is also where psychology can be helpful in de-addiction and so on. But at the same time, you need to understand that something like smoking you cannot take for granted. There is a science behind it, why people get addicted, how people can then be de-addicted. So if you know the science of how people get addicted, you know how to de-addict people, and de-addiction is an important help that we can provide to people affected by smoking. Even if they want, they cannot really stop smoking. So that is one of the issues that arise because of elements like conformity. Everybody is smoking is cool, that is shown in the film. So one is trying to appear cool and smoking, and that sort of a conformity has led one into trouble. So elements like conformity, or also the people follow toxic authorities in various groups, in hostels and everything. So you know how the obedience is created, the whole senior junior power structure and hierarchy and so on. So that sort of a power struggle and that sort of a strain in the relations is also part of our psychology. So where does it come from? Where does it come from? The whole elements succumbing to the pressure of a group, or succumbing to, say, or maybe choosing to rebel against a wrong perpetrated by a group. That is also part of our psychology. So we need to know much more about ourselves in order to make the world a better place. And then elements like prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination. It's not just we as individuals, but also when we think of ourselves as group members, what sort of thoughts we have about, say, Pakistani people. We may have political conflict with Pakistan, but what sort of thoughts Indians have about Pakistanis, and what sort of thoughts Pakistanis have about Indians? That is a very different element. It is mostly governed by, then again, psychological processes where people make judgments about people belonging to other groups. And most of the time, these judgments are not true. And sometimes they can also be true. So, but what is the scientific process behind it? What happens when two groups fight? What happens? What can make two groups come together and live in a harmonious relations? Can we understand the science behind it? What creates conflict and what creates friendship? Because these are not just the matter that are just hanging in the air. There is a science behind it, and we are capable of capturing that science. Okay, so after that, finally, in the 10th week, we'll end with learning more about applying psychological ideas to the specific problems. First is the public order policing. Every society has police in these times, but what does effective policing look like? I was just reading newspaper today. One of the opinion pieces in the Indian Express talks about effective policing, that there has to be less police brutality. Where does police brutality come from? What role does police play, and so on, as an institution, as a practice? What intervention can psychology make in order to develop an effective policing that is suitable for Indian environment? So we need to, and what sort of, in a way, this is an applied domain where we use psychological ideas to improve or intervene into something. And then finally, the elephant in the room that we are all affected by. What is the point of our knowledge if it is not able to address one of the serious and one of the most important concerns in our life, that is still going on, that the current pandemic that we are all experiencing? So finally we'll end with applying psychology to the pandemic and see where it leads us, what sort of insight it can give, and how it can shape. Because see, the key point here is that pandemic, there was a note I was reading on Twitter, and there is a photo of 1918 newspaper about the etiquettes and manners and behaviors to be maintained during the Spanish flu pandemic. If you read them yourself, you will find no difference with the kind of guidelines that are issued today. We are still, after 100 years, on the same page. And what does it tell you? It tells you that essentially the calamities like pandemic and so on are about shaping human behavior. If we are able to shape human behavior and channel it towards a noble aim, or a good aim, or a balanced aim, there we can make our existence much more meaningful, and we can tackle. See, after pandemic, one of the bigger challenges we all will be facing is climate change. You won't find many people discussing climate change in a mainstream sort of things, but if you look back and if you kind of dig deeper, you will see that the discussions about concerns of pandemic were going on all the time. Simply, we were not aware of them. In the same way, the next prediction is about the climate change, which we are still not aware of it. We are just taking it for granted that this Mother Earth is going to provide for us until the end of time. So, and those sort of beliefs and attitudes and understandings that we need to understand, we need to, in a way, examine. And this course is an opportunity for us to engage and go in deeper into ourselves and look at the universe within ourselves. Uh, and so our object of investigation is not outside ourselves. We're not looking at atoms, molecules, nuclei, materials, or anything else. We are looking at ourselves. And if you look within yourself, we are so complex beings. And that is why psychology, at the start, you will find that is dealing with such a complex topic, which is us. And hopefully in this journey you will find many interesting insight, and we will have great time. So this is basically the outline, and then in the week 11 Dr. Sumita will come back again and then cover another very important application. Dr. Sumita, over to you.
Yeah, so I will be continuing the discussion about COVID pandemic that Yashpal touch upon, and talk about how you can design something simple to nudge people's behavior in a certain way. Certain way, again, here, once we have understood how nudges operate early on, as I was saying, we'll here actually design or try to design or look at examples of designing nudges, digital nudges, which is how you can reach a large mass of people uh, through technology to change behavior in a certain way. And here the behavior that I will talk about mainly will be around behavioral change. One or two examples from healthcare, including COVID, one or two from workplace ethics or etiquette, um, a couple of them from marketing. But the point is how you can, as engineers and technologists, think about using technology in a certain way to and use the knowledge from psychology to eventually touch people's lives, and that too at scale. You're not trying to change 10 or 20 people. Let's say, how do you change the behavior of thousands of people? It's an extremely hard problem, and we still don't know good solutions for it, but we know some solution. Sometimes some of the solutions work, sometimes they will not work, because behavioral change, we now know, again through extensive scientific testing, is extremely difficult. People somehow just don't change, but we all want people to change. So this push and pull between what is ideal and what is good for the society at large and what people eventually do. Um, it could be simple things about energy conservation, let's say about climate change, to switching off your um, car in a traffic light, to things about when you should send out that email, a critical email, at what point of time during the day. Gmail, for example, now has introduced a nudge which says that, do you want to read this email which is pending and you have not read it, which was sent to you 3 to 5 days back? Why? Because it is really about people and their relationships. Maybe that's an important email that you just missed. So digital nudges are starting to make inroads into our into our daily lives, and I think Gmail is something that we cannot live without. During the day, at least once we have to touch it. So even there you find how a very simple nudge can actually help a lot, including not missing out on very important conversations or responsibilities that you might be having and you simply just missed it out. So we will kind of revamp around how knowing about psychology and how using technological tools to change behavior at scale might be something that you can take very seriously. And given your background, we think that it's pretty helpful for you also to do. We also have the group submission and project presentation, where we will try our best for hearing your thoughts and what you have done live in the class, and we'll try to work out possible logistics to do it if feasible. But the details of that we will get back to you later on when the time is right. And, yeah, that's what the course is about.
Okay. Okay, maybe what we can do, we can maybe have few questions from the students. Please raise your hand, and we'll let you speak.
Yeah, and one more thing. So as a kind of a tradition, which was something that we tried last time and will continue doing, is we ask this question about, what is psychology to you, and where you put down a word, and we eventually created a kind of a canvas about words and concepts that you think psychology is before you start this course. And we kept it in the last batch. It's really good to take another look at it towards the end of the course, or read it at the end of the course. So that also, if we have a couple of minutes, let's do it. One way to do it would be to use the. Let me stop sharing my screen. So there is a resource here in Teams which enables you for everybody to write, which is the notepad. I don't know if all can see it, but if it does not work today, what we would do is you can type in one word as you think what psychology is according to you in the chat, and the TAs can take a note of it and create a word cloud for it, and that we can share to you all, and also again do it towards the end of the course. But do you want to do that first and then take the questions, or you first take the questions and then do it either way? Yashpal?
What I would suggest is maybe take questions. People have raised their hands, and until that time, we'll figure out maybe use Mentimeter to create a live word cloud or something like that.
Okay. All right. So let me work that out in the background.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and ask your questions.
Chirag? Chirag, please ask your question. Chirag, you are muted. Okay. I don't know how to. Sumita, can you change this thing since you created the meeting? Yes. Allow students to speak, because the camera, I think they can't turn on their mic on their own.
Yeah, it says allow mic for attendees, allow camera for attendees, and allow reactions. So they should be able to speak.
It's allowed.
Could somebody else please try?
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Sir, I want to know, sir, more about memos.
Yeah, so memos are, we typically would ask a question like, for example, what is the new learning that, or one new topic in the class that you really liked, and you will talk about it. That's one kind of memo, which is like a very simple thing where it asks you to see the memos. The point is you deliberate a little bit about what you learned new in class, and you also are able to talk about it, because what we realize is that because you have these back-to-back classes many a times, you don't get a time to reflect a little bit on what you learned. And knowing that from psychology, we found it extremely useful and students found it extremely useful for them to get 5 minutes of time every class to be able to think about the class. So we might be asking, what did you learn new in the class, in an example, or we might be also asking a very targeted question about what do you think about this theory, or what do you think about this experiment that we discussed in class. So the memo gives you a little bit of time to reflect on, okay, this is what I think, or this is what I have understood, and then write about it in your own words. And what we do is we look at it and we grade it within 3 different levels. At 0, which means that you basically wrote nothing. At 1, you showed some understanding and some thought in what you wrote about. And 2, where you go one more step and said, okay, this is what the instructors told, or this is what the professors discussed, but hold on, I also think, or I have something else to say, or maybe this is something that, add something fresh from your own thinking. So this is a more of a reflective activity that we do for every class that helps you to digest the major aspects of the class and allows us to understand how how you are perceiving and understanding the class. In a process, it helps you to figure out what is your major learning lesson in the class, and it helps us to figure out how much progress in learning has happened to you. And in the process, the eventual learning or the eventual adjustment of information we found is much better in students when we do the memos, which is why we do this activity, and it has always been pretty helpful for everybody. Yeah, so it's more of an open-ended kind of a reflective time, at least 5 minutes you get to talk your thing out to us. But it will be in written because we will be, or the TAs will be looking at your memos and sometimes providing you feedback. Sometimes while writing the memo, you might have a question that might occur to you. You are always welcome to send it to them or to us, so then we can take it up. It just gives you a little bit of breather time and better, more depth in the learning for that session.
Okay, here is the link to the you can go to the link and try to write one word that defines psychology for you. Can you do that? Just let me know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it's working.
Okay, great. Please go on. One word that defines psychology for you.
It asks for 3 words, Yashpal. Should they just write 1 word?
Yeah. 1 word or 3 word, whatever.
It is working for 1 word as well.
Okay, good. Okay, changing.
Video. Oh, we are video recording this. Really good. Because how things change also are very important.
Okay, mind is still central. It's not changing at all. Mind behavior is coming up with mind.
And sir, interestingly, it is looking like a human brain.
Yeah, right. Wow. More than 150 answers have been given.
About 100 more people are yet.
Ah.
Bhavesh, the link is in the chat.
Yeah,
Your
click it there. You just click on it. So Sumita, how do we do this when we go back to the normal life? How do we do the word cloud?
Yeah, so some of the things, some of the activities and some of the practices we started for COVID should remain. There's a lot of
take away something.
Yes. Yeah, so does this also mean that 191 people are 192 people are listening to us? 193.
Number is increasing. Is everybody done? We have crossed the 200 mark. So what we are looking at are basically, so how does the word cloud work basically? It aggregates.
Yeah, so it's a frequency count. So that is a little pitch that thought and thoughts will be counted as two separate words. So technically, conceptually, they are the same. But apart from that, this works pretty well. So what we are looking at really is, if you think of psychology as a concept, then what is that? What is the network that this concept is made up of? So what are the other concepts that make up the concept called psychology? And of course, the key words comes out to be mind, and many textbooks define psychology as the science of the mind. Mind and behavior have been extensively discussed in different combinations in history, as Dr. Yashwal will talk about when we talk about the history. Emotions is something that we'll touch upon multiple times in the course. Study of the mind, I just read it as mind. Mind reading is something that is very exciting and enticing for people, including movies like Inception. But and there is some scientific research um, on mind perception. There is some recent work on trying to mind read also from neurological signals. Thoughts, of course, thought processes, form a large perspective, and along with that, we see understanding coming up, which means that people think that psychology is about understanding the world, I guess, when they say understanding, which is great because we would really, again, touch upon how we make sense of the world and how we understand the world. And that world will keep on changing in different kinds of modules. So sometimes the world might be some random shapes on the screen, and sometimes the world might be a much more complex phenomena about where you situate yourself in a whole stream of other people, but both really are understanding the world. Some, small at that point, some large, and that is dynamic because wherever you are at what point in the time or day, all through your life, we have to make sense of. Sometimes people call it as micro words, so different kinds of words. We understand different words. It's not one word really. There are like millions of words that we have to understand. So I think we are starting on a very good light that we are, and of course there are other stuff that we'll talk about. Perception is there. Perception, we'll talk about visual perception. We'll also talk about social perception, people perception, perspectives. Introspection has been again a very important facet of trying to understand the mind historically, which we will touch upon. And there are um, so many other topics which indeed show how diverse and how important psychology is, right? So from studying things about, let's say, mental health to things about this is reading. So this is the span. In fact, the large associations now have 10s, 42, 52 sections of psychology. That's how much psychology expanded recently. And many of these newer sections address different facets of our life or evolving lives for modern generations, which makes it even more obvious. I don't think we have to sell it about how this is a relevant science, because there's a science, there's relevant science, and this is both really. That's already there intuitively from the word cloud, because this is generated by you all before taking the course. So half of our selling job is done.
Yeah, no, I think, but all these terms, one of the key issues here is that all these terms are simply words for us. We really don't know the deep layers of meaning that lie behind that word. So we often use the word mind, but what exactly is mind? Who has the mind? How does it function? What is it made up of? How when we change the mind, and some of you have written mind reading, and so on. So all this is actually mind boggling. So we need to go deeper into these words and these concepts and try to understand the science behind it. But I think most of you are on the good path, uh, especially, and then you will, I think you have connected all the dots there very well, with brain, mind, thinking, and emotions, and so on. So I think this is really a good foundation to build on. Okay. So there is one question which is asked again and again. Uh, uh, so, for example, Purvi has asked here in the chat. Uh, so she wants to know quizzes will come under which part of the evaluation. So I think our policy is not to do quizzes, because in our experience, quizzes are the fieldwork of malpractice. Kind of a key definition for that, because what do quizzes really test and how do they really work? If they really work in testing the content that you have learned, then that is fine. If not, there's no point in doing quizzes if they do not work. Maybe in a face-to-face classroom that is possible, but I think our experience of quizzes in these courses was not that positive. So that is why we have included the element of memos, which replaces the quizzes, which gives you more space to talk about your own understanding, and we'll be looking at each of your answer, it's not going to be kind of an aggregate evaluation, but it's going to be a close one-to-one evaluation where we are going to look at your answers and see uh, what you are understanding well and what you are struggling with. Okay. So tutorials will communicate that. Tutorials in any case are going to start from the next week onwards. This week we'll cover the ground itself first, and then we'll communicate the timing and batches and everything about tutorials by the end of this week. Okay.
Yeah, and if quizzes are written, then it's a typo. We'll just fix that in the document.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Okay. Can you please identify yourself, because there's so much going on in our screen, we are not able to uh, see who is speaking. So please identify yourself.
Good evening, Professor. I am Akash Singh, and
Yes,
I
Akash.
had a general doubt, sir. So, what is the difference between being a psychologist and a psychiatrist? Sir, are these two different people, or what's the difference? I never understand this concept.
Okay. Okay. The fundamental thing is that a psychiatrist has a MBBS degree. And after the MBBS, the psychiatrist has done MD in psychiatry. And psychiatrist is the one who can give you a pharmacological advice, means he or she can give you tablet, medicine, etc. Whereas psychologists generally have a PhD or advanced master's training in some domain of psychology, plus some experience in the field of dealing with various issues. And psychologists will be of for example, one of the common psychologists that you come across are the counselors. Now counselors are not the psychiatrists. Counselors are there to provide you a support, a guidance, and help you understand the issues you are dealing in a much better way. Whereas psychiatrist will come when it about diagnosing any mental disorder, and that diagnosis, just like the way doctor diagnoses any issues that our body experiences and then gives us some medicine, in the same way psychiatrist diagnoses what in the kind of a complex scheme of things that American Psychology Association has created, called as DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. What exactly is the diagnosis looks like, what is happening, and then when that is finalized, then you are given due psychotherapies, which is where psychologist will come. But at the same time, if a medicine is given, that is given by psychiatrist only. And in terms of psychotherapies, there are multiple psychotherapies, but even psychologists can be of different nature. Uh, Psychologists who are dealing with societal issues and problems are social psychologists. Psychologists dealing with health-related issues are health psychologists, and so on. So even in psychology, there will be different practices. In the West, the way psychology grew, and we'll discuss this in the from next class onwards in much more detail with all the background, is that it evolved not only as a theoretical enterprise, but at the same time a robust practice. So if you go to, say, advanced countries, so-called advanced countries in certain manner, because pandemic has shown us that advanced countries are not also advanced in terms of their behaviors. So you go to these affluent countries, you see that they have these specific government divisions which actually employ psychologists and seek psychological advice on certain matters. For example, if you look at UK, United Kingdom, when the pandemic came, they formed an advisory committee composed of psychologists and experts from various domains of psychological and cognitive sciences to in a way guide and advise the government. Okay, I hope this is clear, Akash.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, then shall we stop here? So we'll meet you all in the next class onwards. I will communicate more information about tutorial batches and everything. But keep in mind that whenever you have any question, do write to us, but please copy all TAs so that they are informed about your query, your issue. And we can also, if a TA can help out, we'll assign that issue to one of the TAs, or if we can intervene and do help you resolve it, we'll resolve it. But maintain this etiquette in communication.
And also for the practicals, we will send you a separate email with all the information so that you all can directly join the practical sessions. That's once to everybody via email by tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes, Ashish.
So where do we get the notes of the class?
Notes of the class, you see, we'll be sharing our PowerPoints. That is one resource. Another resource, very important resource, as I have mentioned, is the textbook that we have put together, and all the topics have links, highlighted links, which you can click and go and read that specific chapter, that specific week. Okay, and that is what you have as a learning resource. Notes, I would encourage you to create your own notes. This course is not about developing your memory of psychological concepts, but developing your understanding of those concepts. So we are, in fact, we will encourage you to create your own notes so that you know that will stay with you for long.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys. So thank you. We'll see you in the next class.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
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 Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank 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 you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.